We read a crap ton, both physically and on audio, and these are the books that we think are enhanced because of the audiobook experience.
Now, you guys know we read a huge variety, so the books we're going to show you today are going to be from all the genres that we enjoy, but we do say that the audiobook may just be better. I love Project Hail Mary. This is by Andy Weir, and it is narrated by Ray Porter. I can't give spoilers, but this sci-fi that takes place in outer space with one character blew my mind. The science, the tech, the mission, it's the highest stakes you can ever imagine, but I'm not sure I would have enjoyed it as much if I read it physically.
I read this book physically, so I guess when I reread it, I'll have to do it on audio.
Do yourself a favor.
I read the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee on audiobook. It's narrated by Andrew Kishino. This book is taken into the action adventure it's supposed to be because of the narrator. He understands how to read action. He understands how to do those quiet interpersonal character moments, and he does great variety of voices for all the different characters, specifically of the three main siblings in the Call family. And he does a good generational voice. Like, he can do those gravelly older people in the family, and he can do the younger teens. Also, this audiobook just like has a little bit of music in it. It's just, this one is definitely enhanced on audiobook. Highly recommend. Januaries by Olivia Blake is a collection of her short stories. We love everything Olivia Blake has ever written, but there's something really special about this one because she hired a full cast of narrators that she's used in her other books to bring these stories to life. So she actually narrates one of the stories herself, which is really special, but she also has returning narrators Alexandra Palting, Daniel Henning, David Monteith, Fidel Capistrano, I think I'm saying that correctly, Stephanie Nemeth Parker, and Steve West. And one of her male narrators actually narrates one of the stories that's told from a female POV, and it is so peak.
There's actual like intense acting happening. I know there's one story where there's this like eccentric woman just like monologuing to herself, and it's unhinged.
Oh, so
but
good.
I was laughing. I would have never read it that way in my brain. This story has things that feel like fairy tales, but also like the lit fic stories.
It was such a fun short story collection, but it's like so good on audio.
You have to do it that way.
Legendborn by Tracy Dion is narrated by Jonice Abbott Pratt, and she sounds exactly like I picture Bree sounding, and it is so enhanced. She's got this southern drawl that really helps because this does take place in the Deep South. She does all the different characters, but specifically because it's told from Bree's POV, it's so good to hear Bree how she would actually sound.
This like Arthurian secret society, I didn't know I needed it, but I needed it. I am so excited for book 3. Guys, I think this is a 4-book series, but you can read all 3 now. Legendborn is in a category of its own. Haven't read anything else like it. Phenomenal. Aoife McMahon narrates this book. This is the Gale Song Trilogy by Shauna Lawless. This has Irish mythology. This is like the most dreamy setting you could have ever imagined. But when I read a name and then I hear how it's pronounced, they're not the same.
Yeah, because the two main female characters are named Fola and Gormla, but the way they are spelled, like if you're reading with your eyeballs, is like Fadla and Gormflaith. With our American phoneticism, like you would not know that it's Gormla and Fola, so it's really helpful.
I was reading this completely for vibe. Like the vibe and the setting, top tier.
They are top tier because this is like 1000 AD in Ireland. It's Viking culture, so that is very immersive. But I was actually reading for the politics because this is an extremely tumultuous time in Irish history, and Shauna Lawless is Irish, so she is pulling from the actual histories. She's pulling from actual folklore and mythology of Irish culture, and so it's very politically tumultuous. It is lots of conflict and machinations, and she's added this layer of immortals who are manipulating what's going on with the humans, and so that adds a whole nother layer of intrigue. That's what I was reading for. But there is also a juicy little subplot romance. So Lord of the Rings, the most recent audiobook production, there are several obviously, but the most recent one was done by Andy Serkis, who plays Gollum in the films, and it is astonishingly good. His cadence and his range in the ability to do so many different voices is shocking. Obviously, we knew he could do Gollum, but he does the Hobbit so well. He really captures the different accents and inflections from different parts of Middle-earth. He does Gandalf extremely well. His Treebeard is insane.
Whatever they paid him, I don't think it was enough.
No, not enough.
And if you are intimidated at all by a classic fantasy like The Lord of the Rings, I highly recommend picking it up on audio because you can just vibe. The names will be pronounced correctly. You can take it at whatever pace you need to do it at, slow it down, speed it up, and it can make you enjoy one of our favorite stories of all time, which you should not stay away from just because it's old and it's written a little different.
Okay, we're departing from fantasy for a second to talk to you about Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, and this is narrated by Anna Hardwick. And here's the deal. I picked this up physically. I love Sally Rooney's writing. I've previously read Normal People, but because she does not use traditional punctuation in her books, and it's difficult to differentiate between when a character is in their inner monologue versus their outer dialogue, I ended up picking up this one on audio to help me with that. And the narrator is phenomenal. I think the Irish accent also enhances it. Sally Rooney always hires Irish actors to do her narration, and it helps immerse you in the setting and the time and the place of her stories. And it makes the characters feel that much more authentic, which is Sally's entire style anyways. So I highly recommend this one on audio.
Okay, guys, this is like my favorite sci-fi series of all time. And it's Red Rising. I know, we never talk about it. This is by Pierce Brown. I'm gonna be honest with you. I have never read a sci-fi series this large, and I was very intimidated, but I was told it was gonna be incredible. Because I picked it up on audiobook, I was able to blast through it in a shorter period, which meant that I was in it and not forgetting the characters. There's a lot of families in this. There's a lot of different planets that people are from and different like civilizations, and they all sound different, but because the audiobook is so good, I was easily able to remember who was who and what was going on.
I did physically read most of Red Rising, but I think I was waiting on one of them. So maybe I picked up Morningstar on audiobook, and I can confirm the performance is phenomenal, and it does kind of add an extra layer. When we went to multi-POV, they went to a multi-narration cast, which is very fun.
Can confirm it was helpful.
The First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie starts the Blade itself. I read this book with my eyeballs, and then at least 3 of my very good friends who love me very much and care much about my reading experience were like, what are you doing? Big mistake, huge. Why are you not listening to the Blade itself on audiobook? And I was like, what am I missing? Stephen Pacey narrates the First Law Trilogy. Immaculate performance. There's a specific character in the First Law Trilogy who has been tortured and is now missing his teeth. And before he was tortured, he was a nobleman. So when he has inner monologue, he sounds like a sophisticated noble. But when he is giving dialogue to other characters, it comes out in a lisp. And it's higher pitched, and you can tell that he's had his tongue fucked with and he's missing his teeth. And it's because Stephen Pacey just clicked that in his head. He was like, this dude would sound different in his own mind than he does to other characters. He comes off very pathetic to other characters, but we know because we are in his head that he's incredibly smart, incredibly good at political machinations, very manipulative, very cunning, dry sense of humor, and he sounds very intelligent to us in his head. And that's only possible because the narrator got that and did such a great job with it, and it's so much better on audio. This is one of those books that it's like, obviously Joe Abercrombie is a genius. His humor comes through. He's great at characters, and you're gonna get all of that if you read this with your eyeballs. But this is just one of them ones. You should definitely try at least one of the books on audio just for Glocta's performance. It is so good.
I love a good memoir, and Maddie and I found both of these in the last year. So fun. So we've got Dinner for Vampires. This is by Bethany Joy Lenz. Then we have, all right, Matthew McConaughey doing Green Lights.
I love that both of these authors narrated their own audiobooks. I think this is becoming more popular, and it's for good reason, because there's nothing like hearing someone's story told in their own voice and hearing their memories as they would remember them and tell them if you just went out to dinner with them.
In this one, you actually hear some narration done from people who were in One Tree Hill with Bethany, so that's super cool. But Matthew is a comedian.
Yeah.
So he makes it funny. He laughs at his own jokes, which I can totally relate with. And when you get done with his book, you actually feel like you know him as a person. I would say more so than just reading it, because you hear his emotion. They are actors, so they know how to like really push across their points when things are hard. They know how to put that through their vocal cords. Like, come on, man. I think that's maybe why I love memoirs so much, is because it actually feels very intimate with the author.
I was just going to say the word intimate. It definitely makes you feel like it's more personal because they are telling you their story. I don't know if there's an audiobook available narrated by the author. I don't know that I would ever do it physically now, having had these experiences. Like, memoirs just should be read by the author.
100%.
Let's talk about the Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. These each have their own narrator, so I mostly want to talk about Clockwork Prince, which is the second book in the trilogy. In that one, it's narrated by Ed Westwick, who played Chuck Bass on Gossip Girl.
We love him.
And because this trilogy is about two best friends and a woman, and the three of them, and their like dynamic, it's a love triangle, guys. I'm just gonna tell you. The fact that we get Will and Jem narrated by Ed Westwick brings these characters to life, and I love these two boys with my whole entire heart. It was the most emotionally evocative love triangle I've ever read, because I truly could not choose between them. If it does not move you, I'm convinced you don't have a soul. It is so romantic. It's so aching. The longing is palpable. It is beautiful. He did amazing. If you know, you know. And it is 100% his voice. That man came into this world with a beautiful instrument in his vocal box, and he has blessed us with it. Read all of the Infernal Devices because the story is amazing, but absolutely do book 2 on audio. You can read the other 2 with your eyeballs if you want, but read book 2 on audio.
So you're gonna have to go in the comments and tell us which amazing audiobooks just blew you away and you would recommend an audiobook only. Also, if you are not an audiobook person, I totally get it, but I will say there's a lot of options to enjoy it, and I've been using Hoopla and Libby for years, which are just library apps, so it costs you nothing. Sometimes you have to wait, but sometimes you don't, and it's really helped me read more of the books that I want and get through the TBR that I couldn't physically read as quickly.
I also use Audible and Spotify for audiobooks. Sometimes when my library doesn't have something available, or it's a long wait, or it's a new release, I'll just go ahead and grab it on Audible using my monthly credits, or I'll use my 15 hours of listening time with my Spotify Premium account. Now, as for what's coming up on our TBR that people have told us we must listen to on audio, everyone is saying if we do not listen to Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman on audio, we are going to be severely missing out. So that is up next for both of us on our TBR, hoping to tackle that soon. What ones are on your TBR? Let us know in the comments. Every time we do a list like this, we get a little bit nervous that we're overwhelming you guys with a big, never-ending TBR, and we are the first to understand TBRs can be really overwhelming.
But don't stress, we actually just made a podcast this last week, we'll link it over here, where we talk about good books that are good forever. Whether you read it in this decade or the next, they're gonna slap just as hard, and it might just take away a little bit of that TBR anxiety that most of us readers deal with.
Bye. Happy reading!